You are tuned in to Recovery TV, the voice of hope. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Here is your host, John J. Tassoni Jr., with today's guest.
Welcome to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, Sean Tassoni. My guest today is Mr. Steve O'Donnell, and Steve is the CEO of the Greater Providence YMCA. Welcome, Steve.
Welcome to you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And you know, I wanted to have you on because you have an extensive background in law enforcement. That's number one. But number two is I wanted to first talk about the YMCA and what's transpiring with the YMCA with the kids today with this opioid problem, this pandemic that we have. What are the kids doing? What are you doing to prevent any issues that may occur within your organization?
No, it's a great question. So we have 6 YMCA's that we run in Rhode Island and a camp, a summer camp. So all of that in our Providence Youth Services, where we service children and adults. So part of our role is educating them about opioids, letting them know prevention, abuse. Anchor Recovery is on our Kent County-wide property.
Oh, okay.
So we have a relationship with them. We've had some donors donate funds to offset the cost of people that have been impacted by opioids. So if they can't afford a membership, we have funding for them. So we encourage you, if you live in the Kent County area or you live anywhere in Rhode Island that we cover and you can't afford it, you let that know. We have scholarship funds, it's called a financial assistance fund, that people underwrite for that. Mm-hmm. That's one. 2, educating the kids in our after-school programs. We do before school and after-school programs. So the learning gap that's happening because of COVID, but there's a learning gap candidly in the urban core prior to COVID, but teaching kids before school and after school, and they're getting obviously during school. So that's one of the whys, all the whys in Rhode Island. That's one of our biggest things. Child care provider, the largest child care provider in Rhode Island. So it's really important while we have them, we have an opportunity to educate them in addition to what they do at schools. Mm-hmm.
Now, what districts do you represent?
It's a very complicated system. The Ys were developed 150 years ago, so there's program areas. So each branch is a program area. So on the east side of Providence, which covers Greater Providence into other areas, we have a Newman branch in Seekonk, Barrington, we call it Bayside, Kent County. We have a South County Y, and I always miss one somewhere in the process. But all the Ys that we cover kind of span through Rhode Island. There are 4 other Y associations, Newport Y, Mystic, Mystic is also Westerly, and then Pawtucket Y and Smithfield. Smithfield's a standalone Y, they're all by themselves. Mm-hmm. I oversee 6 in a camp. Pawtucket oversees 4 in a camp. Middletown has 1, which is Newport, that's the one I missed, and Westerly has 3, and they run together. We talk once a week. We have these meetings to kind of for best practices, and YUSA oversees all of them. It's kind of a franchise. We all work for a board of directors, so I work for a board of directors that has nothing to do with Pawtucket, and they have nothing to do with us, except we collaborate and we're trying to do best practices. So power in numbers. So to get around the state, Westerly runs a program in Connecticut. We run a program in Mass, which has different rules. So we collaborate, trying to do the best we can to get the message out. COVID's impacted Ys across the country. A lot of Ys have reconfigured how they do business. Candidly, in our Y, it's amazing that everybody stayed solvent. We closed the business. 99% of our funding comes from our members. Mm-hmm. You remember, when we were closed due to COVID, we don't have members anymore. Mm. But a lot of our members stayed and continued paying their fees every month to help the Y along, and we have different fundraising mechanisms. We were lucky. We actually were rejected for 3 of the federal loan programs because we were too big. Anything over 500 employees was rejected through the Small Business Association loans. Phase 4, then CARES 4, we got a loan. And that loan turns into a forgivable loan if we hit certain criteria, and we're going to hit that criteria, which is super helpful. Mm-hmm. So the government has really stepped in to help a lot of those small businesses. Candidly, some of the small businesses or businesses got it. When you look at the list, is almost, to my perspective, ridiculous. Yeah. But because it's so large, everybody got a piece of the puzzle. So for us, service oriented, we're just like you. We're trying to get message out to people. We're trying to make sure they come in. We believe in the physical, mind, body, spirit. So you're physically working out, you're getting the cardiovascular, they're really good about that. But also, cardiovascular health has a lot to do with mental health and vice versa. So if we can convince people to come in and use your facilities, and not even working out sometimes, our active older population, candidly, they're great because they come and they socialize there. So the mask mandate today, a mask came off in all the Ys based on the governor's announcement. And so there's a lot of really happy people that, they want to interact, they want to be comfortable, they want to be safe. So part of our mission is to tell people about the cardio benefits and then the mental health. And the last piece of mental health, we just hired a full-time mental health advocate.
Yeah.
And that's something we could use a dozen of. And that person's job will be to talk to our members, but also talk to our kids at camp for exactly what you and I were talking about earlier about the issues that develop that they have because of COVID.
Right.
Antisocial behavior, they're stuck in doing certain things. So I think the best thing can happen is COVID, all this stuff, it hopefully goes away, and then we can re-engage these community organizations where they can help the general public.
Now, you were mentioning that on a weekly basis you have this conference with all the rest of the Ys. My question to you would be, are they seeing more alcohol use within young adults? And the reason why I'm asking you this question, and I was on a conference call the other day, and there seems to be a lot of young kids, 6th graders to be candid, have been brought in with alcohol poisoning. Now, what that says to me is one of two things. Either someone's buying it for them, or they're taking it out of their homes. Have you seen an increase in the Ys with these kids with alcohol use?
Yeah, we haven't, but that's not because it's something that we monitor.
Right.
So those are parental things that really don't make it to us. We haven't seen an increase in problematic behavior in our school-age children. We had a decline in kids attended because of what happened with COVID. So we're starting to get a slight uptick and hopefully a big uptick, kids coming. And then our specialists and our teachers will be able to identify that type of behavior. But I coach in a high school, so it's a problem. If you're talking 6th graders, these are young men and women in a high school setting that it's around them. And it's part of it is like if I took out my phone, it's the internet, it's accessibility. But most of that's parentally driven as far as I would see that if you're a 6th grader or you're a high school kid, you have parents and you need to police them. You got to make sure that they understand the parameters of like where you're probably going with this. Yeah. The alcohol turns into drugs, which turns into addiction, and the percentages of kids that are impacted. And you multiply that by the whole mental health thing going on with COVID, you have this perfect storm. So I'm glad you mentioned it because it's going to make me go back and talk to my staff about how we monitor that the best of our ability.
Yeah, see, one of the things, and we're both from Smithfield, so I went into the liquor store and someone told me something. So I went in and I said, how are your sales during COVID? It's up
Through the roof.
234%.
It was a critical business, so think about that.
Yeah.
So I'm not to interrupt.
Well, I want to talk about that when we come back, because we're going to
Yeah.
take a quick break, because
Gotcha.
let me tell you something. There's a reason why the liquor stores were not shut down. So we're going to go take a quick break. You're watching Recovery TV. I'm your host, John Tassoni. We're here with the former colonel of the state police, Steve O'Donnell. We'll be right back.
Every week I work in stadiums filled with thousands and talk to thousands more on the radio, which means people who come from every walk of life. And I know that many, like my own family, have grieved over loved ones caught in the grip of addiction. 8 years ago, we lost my nephew to an overdose. But I've also seen in friends and even fans who've shared their stories, others break that hold and regain control of their lives. You can do the same. Please know you're not alone.
The Parent Support Network is committed to supporting and assisting peers. Together, they're working with statewide and national partners to empower children, families, and individuals through dynamic supports, education, and advocacy to prevent abuse and neglect and progress toward universal health, wellness, and recovery. A location is near you. Child and Family Visitation and Training Center in Warwick, Hope Recovery Community Center in Middletown, Hope Recovery Community Center of Washington County in Westerly, or online at psnri.org.
Treatment is often far more successful when individuals are offered both medication and behavioral therapy. Kodak Behavioral Health Care is Rhode Island's largest, only nonprofit, outpatient provider of care for opioid use disorder.
Our compassionate clinicians deliver the highest level of care for patients.
Through Kodak's medication-assisted treatment program, patients are prescribed methadone, buprenorphine, Suboxone, and naltrexone. For a confidential conversation, call Kodak.
Local 57 Operating Engineers is Rhode Island's source for professional heavy equipment operators. For the last 120 years, Local 57 members have worked on all of Rhode Island's major construction projects, including buildings, roads, and bridges. If you're looking for professionally trained and licensed operators to run your excavators, loaders, cranes, or any other type of construction equipment, give us a call at 421-6678. If you're an experienced heavy equipment operator and would like to join our team, give us a call.
The Rhode Island Department of Health reports that drug overdose death is the #1 cause of accidental death in our state. Zinnia Exeter is committed to helping overcome addiction and the silent epidemic of drug overdose. Our substance abuse completion rates are over 25% higher than the national average. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, call Zinnia Exeter to learn about treatment options.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. My guest today is former Colonel of the State Police, Steve O'Donnell, and now is the CFO or CEO of the Greater Providence Y. And thank you for joining us today, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. You know, we were talking a little bit about alcohol, and one of the things, too, that people don't realize is that you can die from a detox of alcohol. And we believe that with all the things that are going on, why the liquor store stayed open is because of that reason. Because people who need alcohol to get through their day, if they were to stop, we would have a big rise in deaths with alcohol. And now we're seeing young children, again, 6th grade, with alcohol poisoning. And there's been conversations, myself and a few others, that alcohol has risen 234% during COVID. So my question to you would be, number one, what is your thought on it as a former law enforcement, but now you're dealing with children all the way up to seniors? What's your thought on that?
Well, those percentages would knock the socks off anybody, any civilian or anybody in law enforcement or anywhere, that the use of alcohol during COVID has gone up. I think there's reasons, as you know. It's understandable, I guess, but as I told you earlier, I'm driving to work and my work is closed. We laid off 700 people. We had 900 employees. We laid off 700 because we were closed. And then I'm driving down the street and the liquor store is open. There's no knock on a liquor store. That's an essential business, but a health and wellness business is not. So someone makes those decisions, and with COVID and people that I think these percentages, 1 in 5 people have associated with substance abuse with addictive personalities. So if it's addicted to alcohol, marijuana, heroin, fentanyl, whatever it may be, then you got 1 in 5 people, could have this problem.
3 of us here.
Yeah, so if it's alcohol, if that's the way it starts, I know there are a lot of people that don't believe in the progressive use of alcohol to pot to something else, but there are a lot of people that it's happened to. I know a lot of them when I worked the street. I know a lot of them now that they started when they were very young drinking. To me, when you said 6th grade, I almost fell out of my chair. I have 3 sons, they're all grown men, but I would never even think of that as a 6th grader. You do understand high school kids, but to me, it's a wake-up call, because down the road, those 6th graders turn into high school kids, into adults, and if it's abused now, you're just going to overload the system somewhere, and you have people dying at crazy rates from opioids. But now, if you're talking young kids dying or being critically cared for because of alcohol, sickness, or whatever it may be, intoxication at 6th grade, that's just ludicrous.
I think one of the things too that we as a society need to wrap our arms around is parents not being parents. They'd rather be friends than to be parents. Like when you and I grew up, our parents were parents. You didn't do some of the stuff that the kids are doing today because parents want to be friends rather than be parents. I say that all the time because, you know, I go to the schools, you deal a lot with the kids, and you see how the actions of these children, and I call them children, and some of them, you know, high school kids that I go and, you know, do talks with, how their behavior is. When I was a kid, and if I ever behaved like that in school, the teacher would obviously do something to me, detention or whatever, and then when you went home, you got it from your parent. But now it doesn't seem to be the way of the world now. Let's put it that way. And I'm sure, you know, your staff tells you that, you know, you see these kids, they come in, they're not well behaved, they want to do their own thing, and it's very difficult for staff people to do discipline, I will use that word, to do talks with these kids. I mean, it's a whole different world.
Yeah, from the WISE perspective, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier than a school setting because you choose to be a member. In school,
Right.
You have to go to school, and there's different rules. Here, if you violate the rules, our membership rules, you can be dismissed for that type of behavior. So it is different for us, so there are accountability if someone's stretching it.
Right.
But it wouldn't surprise you that, you know, sometimes we have members that get carried away with, you know, this isn't your place. You're a member here and you're supposed to abide by rules. You're not supposed to be doing certain things. So we're fairly lucky, I think, in that, because when those things escalate to me, I've been there a little more than 5 years. We've had some members we've had to remove because of their behavior. But and the ones that have made it to my level that are really angry, and I mean they've been angry in front of me, I'm like, you don't own this place, and there's behavior.
Right.
And if you don't like it, sue us.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to sue you. Well, sue us that you're a member in a facility that you've agreed to abide by good
the
behavior.
rules. Right.
So as for the kids, I think we have really talented people like other places. A lot of our part-time staff and our full-time staff, at least our part-time staff, have other jobs. You know, so we have a school principal that works on one of our WISE because her out is aquatics. It's like, for me, my out always from law enforcement was coaching. So you have a dual life to keep yourself sane. So for us, we're semi-lucky in the sense that we have our own rules and regulations, and if someone is violating those rules and it makes it to the right process, then behavior matters and you'd be dismissed from that program. And if you're not in that program, you know, you just backfill with somebody else.
So what kind of programs does the Y offer for kids who, obviously substance use and mental health type of programs? Do you have programs like that in the Y?
You know, not specifically, they're kind of like offsets of our programs. So our after-school programs, before and after school, kids are educated on those things. They're besides the regular piece of education. We also look for behavior. If there's something that a child has problems, we have reporting requirements if something's wrong, just like everybody else.
Right.
So specifically, there's not a program for a child for opioids or alcohol, but it's all encompassed in that. Our summer camps, the same thing. We want to make sure that, especially the overnight camps, that they're alcohol-free, especially the age groups that come from 13 to 18, or even the younger kids, but the counselors that come in, if they bring their culture in where they might want to abuse alcohol or even they get involved in drugs, we have good leaders, and if it happens, they get dismissed pretty quickly.
Yeah, great. We're going to take a quick break. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. My guest today has been former Colonel of the State Police, Steve O'Donnell, and we'll be right back after this.
I think when you're actively struggling with an addiction, you don't realize the harm that it's causing to the people in your circle, in your family, and your friends. You know, by quitting and getting help, I was able to heal a lot of relationships that were damaged, and you find that people come back to you. Someone used to say to me that it's darkest just before dawn. So if you think that you've gone too far, it's not true. No matter what problems you have, your life can get better if you get help.
I started getting in trouble when I was really young. I was bringing knives to school in the 3rd grade. I started hanging out with the wrong crowds. I envisioned that if I wasn't dead by 26, I'd be in jail. I never had plans past that. Tides give me the opportunity to start a new life fresh. So now to be 28 with 4 children, married, manage this restaurant, living in a house, it's a miracle. Life is incredible, and Tides is who I have to thank for that.
Addiction Recovery Institute with locations in Pawtucket and Warwick have been the leaders in treatment of opioid use disorder since 1993. Addiction Recovery Institute offers same-day admission, no waiting list. Services include medicated assisted treatment, detoxification, and substance counseling, always providing care to those who are most in need with dignity and respect. For more information, visit methadone.com.
Alcohol and drug addiction, depression, anxiety, PTSD, they can all seem overwhelming, but you don't have to face them alone. At Trinity Village, we are committed to providing addiction treatment that works. We specialize in offering integrated care for co-occurring mental and substance use disorders. We offer cutting-edge medicated assisted treatment and medication management. We are now offering virtual care to get the treatment you need from the comfort of your home. If you or someone you love needs help, call or visit us online.
With these,
and this,
with my mouth shut,
and my ears wide open.
It means that from the moment you walk into the room,
you're the most important patient to me.
East Bay Recovery Center in Warren connects people in recovery to the supports and activities that make long-term recovery a reality. People with lived experience work to engage individuals and serve as a guide for new recoveries. The Peer Recovery Specialist's aim is to engage high-risk individuals being served in the community to vital treatment and services and follow-up to ensure the connection to treatment and services is maintained. For more information, visit ebcap.org or call 302-6231.
And now back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. I'm here with the former Colonel of the State Police, Steve O'Donnell, and now the head of the Greater Providence YMCA. So, Colonel, thank you for joining us today. I wanted to touch a little bit on the street drug fentanyl. People are not dying of opioids anymore, they're dying of fentanyl. You know, the drug dealers now have their own pill machines, making their own pills. You know, there was a big drug bust that me and you had spoken about over the past couple of weeks. Give me your thought on that.
Just quickly, the state police a couple months ago seized 90 pounds. Think of that, 90 pounds of fentanyl. Just 1 gram of that could kill you in Rhode Island. So that's a wake-up call if there's no wake-up call. So it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Some people think it's supply and demand, so that people want it, you get the product. That's what drug dealers do. So it's a law enforcement issue. It's also a public
health.
Yeah, not even a public health. It's a public emergency. That something's got to be done. If 400 people died last year, 28 people were murdered in Rhode Island last year, 28, and 400 died of opioids. To me, you got to put some emphasis into that because we're losing people, and we're losing people from all geographic areas. I mentioned to you earlier that there is some conversation, I'm not sure if it has legs, of classifying fentanyl, which is a Schedule I drug, which has no medicinal value, to a weapon of mass destruction. If that ever happened, you're pushing the drug dealers out because that's a life bid in prison, and you're not going to have anybody messing with that. So part of the problem is our users, you know, those people that want it. There's got to be another way to not want that high. Supply and demand, and you know, China's supplying it, and it's just another way that China, from my perspective, is infiltrating our country, polluting our own people. Now, is it our own fault? Certainly, but there's other ways that we need to get that message out to prevent death, but also educate people on the dangers of fentanyl.
You know, we could do a whole show on that, on the fentanyl with yourself and others, but one of the things, too, I want you to tell my viewers about the Y. How can they become a member of the Y?
Walk in the front door any day. The Ys are beautiful. There's 14 in Rhode Island. I oversee 6. Just walk in, tell them who you are. You'd like to become a member. Take a ride. Some of them are beautiful. If you walked into Kent County Y, 115 acres, it's something to see. A lot of people don't know it. In fact, the mayor of Warwick, I took him. He had never been there. The former mayor of Warwick had never been there. So we have all sorts of programs, not just a gym and swim. That's what's going to get you in the door. There's a lot more than that.
Well, great. Listen, Colonel, I want to thank you for joining us and thank you for what you did. Thank you for your public service. It's not easy, and I'm sure that with this new job that you have, it's a little bit less stressful. Maybe not. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, a little
but I want to thank you for joining us today. So you've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll see you next week.
My first experience with addiction was actually with a family member. And I was very young at the time. I didn't really understand everything that was going on, but I knew that it really rocked my family to the core. Now, thank God that family member got the help that they needed. Sometimes you get yourself backed into a corner and feel like you've got to do it alone, but I think it's important for those people that are in that situation right now in their lives to understand they don't have to do it alone. You know, you can make it through this, you can get back on track.
If you or someone you know is struggling with a mental health or substance abuse issue, the members of Horizon Healthcare Partners are here to help. Kodak, Community Care Alliance, Newport Mental Health, Thrive Behavioral Health, and Tides Family Services serve the behavioral health needs of all Rhode Islanders. We also operate BH Link, the state's 24/7 behavioral health emergency center. For help, call the 24/7 hotline at 401-414-LINK. For more information, visit Horizon Healthcare Partners at hhpartners.org.
Anchor Recovery has been a mainstay since 2010 and was the first recovery community center in the state. Anchor Recovery has grown from just a couple of 12-step meetings to an entire cadre of meetings supporting multiple pathways of recovery. Today, we support medicated assisted treatment, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, and physical aspects of recovery. Easy access in 3 locations. Learn about how recovery can help you. Different paths, same destination. Stop in, call, or visit anchorrecovery.providencecenter.org.
Serving the community for more than 30 years, 3 generations of our family at Wesco Oil have been providing reliable comfort to your home.
From oil delivery to installation and service, you can trust us to maintain your heating and cooling systems year-round. Visit us at bewarm.com to choose an option that best meets your needs. Be cool or be warm. We've got you covered. Honest service at a competitive price. Wesco Oil Company.
Sometimes everyone can use a helping hand. At Tri-County Community Action Agency, we offer support services when you need it the most. From food and heating assistance to family health and dental care, we have programs to lend a helping hand throughout the whole life cycle. From grandkids to grandmas, individuals or families. If you or someone you know could use a helping hand, visit our website at tricountry.org to learn more about the many services we provide. We know it isn't easy to ask for help. At Tri-County, we are here when you need us. For more information, visit tricountry.org or call 401-351-2750.
If you're struggling with addiction to pain pills or heroin, it's time to call Groups Recover Together. Groups will get you the medicine you need to feel better.
When I took Suboxone, I felt just like able to function, no sickness, no, anxious feeling.
And we'll give you the support you need to build the life worth being sober for. The time commitment is minimal, just 1 hour a week. You can meet with us in person or virtually. Call now to get started.
Tune in every weekend for a new edition of Recovery TV. Host John J. Tassoni Jr. discusses information on addiction and mental health issues with local leaders in today's recovery world. Tune in Saturday evenings on MyRI TV or Sunday mornings on CW Providence or Fox Providence.